The Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett.
Everybody's talking about consciousness. Everybody wants that eternal kiss. Yeah, everyone's saying there's more than this. Everyone wants to follow their own bliss. Talking about one love, one blood, one life in everyone. One life, give each other. We are sisters and brothers. We sing Om.
On the Expansion Zone, we examine life and our quest to understand who and what we are and of the vastness of human potentials. We explore the making of our world from quantum physics to parapsychology, health, sociology, and philosophy, along with practical living. You are reminded of the possibilities in creating personal change. So for an hour, we'll stimulate and expand the mind.
Shanti, 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 shanti. Sing the world. Let's do shanti, 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 shanti. It's time to wake up. Shanti, shanti.
Well, welcome once again to another edition of the Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett. I am, of course, your host, Sonia Barrett. Thank you so much for showing up today and for tuning in. And as always, I've got something interesting. I'm gonna ask you what kind of space you're in right now. What's your day like so far? What else am I going to ask you? Your working environment. What is that like? What's your desk like? What's your car like? What's your home like? Yeah, basically, we're going to be talking about Feng Shui today. That's why I'm kind of throwing all of that out there. So anyway, so much to think about. I love the fact that life has, all these incredible formulas and so many things that we are not exposed to, or maybe we're exposed to it, but we are not clear on exactly how they work. So we attempt to do these things, and sometimes because we don't have all of the information, we don't quite get things to work exactly as we're hoping that they would work. And so this is what we do here. We try to bring you folks that will help to clarify things, to create simplicity in our lives. And goodness knows we could all use more simplicity. So, my guest today is Master Denise Liotta Dennis. She is a Feng Shui Master, and so, we'll be schooled today on the ancient art of Feng Shui. The concept of Qi is based on the belief that all things in the universe possess the mysterious consciousness of energy. Therefore, every cell in your body and every room in your dwelling have their own unique energy. Now, that's a quote taken from her book titled Feng Shui for Health, Beauty, and Longevity. We are also going to chat a bit about a few Hollywood celebrity homes, which Denise Liotta Dennis wrote about in her book, Hollywood's Fatal Feng Shui, an in-depth examination of 10 celebrity homes with a tragic history. Now, I do think that it is true that most people who have some passing awareness of Feng Shui tend to be more focused on using it to improve love and money, but probably not so much focus on health. Yet health should be at the top of that list. So we're going to take a look at that as well. And so, by the way, Master Denise Liotta Dennis will be giving away a few copies of her book later on in the show. So I do tell you, stay tuned for that opportunity. So I think I'm really grateful to her for doing that, because her work is fantastic. It is fabulous. Her book, the books that she's written. So I can't wait to dive into all of that. So let's find out a little bit about Denise. Denise A. Liotta Dennis is one of less than 100 genuine Feng Shui masters in America and a 6-time published author. Her books are sold internationally. Denise studied with 4 noted Feng Shui masters from China, Malaysia, and Australia, including Grand Master Yap Cheng Hai, and belongs to his 400-year Wu Cheng Feng Shui Mastery lineage. And her website is dragongatefengshui.com. She has other websites too, and she'll let us know about all of that. But in the meantime, Denise A. Liotta Dennis, I should say Master Denise, welcome to the Expansion Zone.
Thank you, Sonia. That was wonderful.
Yes, it was great chatting with you for that brief moment there, and I thought, wow, there's so much that we'll be able to talk about on the show. So I think maybe where we should begin is perhaps to, if you were to give the audience just a little bit of a summary. Somebody said, well, what is Feng Shui? Could you maybe just throw something out there just to give people an idea before we get into much bigger aspects of what we're talking about?
Right. Yeah. Well, you have a very savvy audience, and most people kind of get the concept that it has to do with energy. But it's an ancient art, invented by the Chinese for thousands of years ago, and us, which we're energy, and our spaces, which are also energy, and our environment's energy. And it's that relationship, but it has specific focus. So it was about the energy, but how do we tap that energy? How do we invite that energy so that it supports us in our concerns? You know, what I call the human experience. Well, what's the human experience? It's relationships, it's health, and it's prosperity. So that's what it came to be and it sort of evolved over thousands of years. It didn't start out quite that sophisticated, but it started out by saying, we're in a universe where there's, polarity, and there's night and day, and there's yin and yang, and so forth, and then it started developing into something quite sophisticated so that it became very specific. And unfortunately, the Feng Shui that we have in America and a lot of Western cultures is a very simplified, watered-down version. It's really rich and really deep and very specific to you and when you moved in and what's around your surroundings and so forth, and so that you can tap it in very unique ways to support you in those areas that we're concerned about. We're still concerned about those 3 areas. It doesn't matter if it's, 6,000 years ago. We're concerned about our prosperity, our health, and our relationships.
And yes, I know you said that invented by the Chinese, but I think that probably, not given the name Feng Shui, but everything I've looked at, it's like these indigenous groups and cultures have dealt with geometry, maybe in a little bit of different way, but space somehow, this spatial knowledge and location and arrangement and all of that, it seemed to have existed for a long time, but they put it into a formula that can be utilized.
Yeah, even the Native Americans, like if you're on our part of the world, not the eastern part of the country, the Native Americans worshipped, if you will, the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, and then above, which is the heavens, Father, and then Mother Earth. And so direction was honored. And they would set up certain things to, invite the most positive energy from those directions. And so direction, it's odd to say because people are thinking it's things, but directional qi really is the essence behind classical Chinese Feng Shui, in which they brought it to these unbelievable levels. And when I mean that, I mean they have very specific formulas, and that's what the word they use, formulas for inviting qi in certain areas, or the opposite, where they're analyzing, they're evaluating the quality. In other words, it shouldn't have these things, otherwise you might have lawsuits or affairs, or you can't get pregnant, or these different things that had to do with everyday life. So they did both. How to enhance and via these formulas and moving things a certain way and houses being oriented a certain way. And then also the reverse. Well, why would you want to know the reverse, the bad luck? Just so you don't activate it. So it has a lot of that aspect, which most people aren't aware of. And it has a predictive aspect. Well, why would you want to go through all that trouble to predict something? It's not a predictive art, but it has that aspect where in certain years, certain things have happened. And, you can see that once you have the information about a person's house. I talk about in all of my books, I talk about this predictive aspect. And you'll want to know that because, like, what if the year of the pig for you and your home might bring X, then you're alerted so that you don't ignite and start a chain reaction, if you will, of bad luck by disturbing certain kinds of energies. So it has that, that aspect of it. It's very unique in that when you moved in and the exact direction, that's where that direction comes from. And it gets very specific. This is what makes it exciting. Otherwise, this study would not have been exciting for me. Just the basic kind of stuff. It's not enough meat, whereas the classical has a lot of meat in it. And that's why I went over, flew thousands of miles to go study with my teacher, is because once I discovered that there was a difference.
So
here,
yeah. Go ahead.
And then what was actual, like ancient, had been around like forever. Well, that's when I wanted to know those secrets. And then the books really are about sharing those secrets so that everybody can use them.
So basically it sounds to me that things are happening anyway, naturally. And Feng Shui, Feng Shui is in operation even though we are unaware. And so that could give reason then for some of the things that happen, is what it sounds like you're expressing. Some of the things that we experience, some things that could be avoided, in the direction or in how things are in our home, or possibly even where we choose to live or where we buy our house. I don't know. It seems like it's this formula that is automatically there, but when you understand how to work with it, you can have a bit more choices or something of that nature.
No, that's absolutely correct. That's a correct assessment. In that, I had one client that said it this way. He said, Denise, most people just don't connect the dots, meaning just what you described. In other words, you get a home, things are set in motion, and then certain events start unfolding. And to me, most people get about 80% of it right. In other words, when I come in, or any Feng Shui consultant, they're tweaking a few things, but they get that big chunk that serves them. But then that mystery part, like, I didn't really want that to happen. I didn't want to lose my partner in this house, or I didn't want to get sick in why. Since I moved here, it's like a whole chain of bad luck is happening. They don't connect the dots. That's what Eric meant. He said they don't connect the dots. That it means that it has something to do. It's not everything, but it has something to do with the energy of where they are in that home and perhaps in the environment, which always has a play in there. So everybody has the free will. Nobody gets to play God on this planet. I don't care what kind of modality you have, and there are some fantastic ones, right? And you've probably discussed every single one of them, from quantum physics to every single thing, right? But there is still that free will. In other words, the soul wants to experience something. So a lot of times we will then select a house because maybe we want to understand sickness, whatever, right? Maybe that's the gig, that we want to understand it so that we can heal from it and help other people. We never know the purpose, right? And so as a consultant, and even if you practice this on your friends and whatever, you don't want to ever get into judgment and say, oh, well, if you just did this, you wouldn't be having this bad luck, because sometimes that's part of the soul directive, if you will, right? So this is why it's so fascinating looking at energy like this from the home or from the business. It's like a jumping off point of what can you do now to switch things, because now once you're aware of it, like your audience is very aware, once you have that awareness, like, okay, now I think I want to switch it. I don't think I want to experience it anymore, so what can I do to shift energy around or maybe another place, right? Another place of business, whatever, and then I can have that different experience that I'm envisioning, whatever that is, right?
Mm-hmm. And it makes sense. Yes, it is the journey and the free will of the journey and the need for some particular experiences by each of us. But I think what's also fascinating here too, Denise, is the fact that I think that when it's time for that change to happen, and I think you just said it, when it's time for that change to happen, somehow that person becomes introduced to opportunities to perhaps, do this, restructure, like what we're talking about. So so technically it's like there really is never really any interference. You just sort of land in the space that is what appropriate for whatever the change is coming up. Does that make sense?
Exactly. And the thing about classical feng shui that makes it so rich and deep is that when this is a comment that I get, from people who are studying or reading my books or whatever, because this is still kind of new in America, which is something I'm always excited. And why I do radio interviews and I do public speaking is because it's still relatively new in America that there are so many tools in which to use and or be aware of. So let's say that people had that situation you just described, say, okay, now I'm ready for that thing. Now you're going to attract to yourself something that is richer and deeper and more probing into how you can use your energy of your space. This is kind of very basic where we live, right? Because we're going to be experiencing certain things there, good or bad or indifferent or whatever. We're going to have an experience. And so then they find these things, and what they do is when they get into the classical, these things they've never heard of. They go, what are you talking about? And you probably look through some of the books because you're very curious about some of these crazy terms. And especially you mentioned earlier, the fatal feng shui, is that when you start looking at these people's lives, now everything we just said, of course, is true. So whatever happened to Anna Nicole Smith or Sharon Tate or any of those kinds of things, now the soul had a directive. We don't know what that is, right? We can see the result of that. But the fact is that they also attracted homes and environments which were pretty energetically serious. I mean, it was there. It was available. Not everybody who was in that house with Sharon Tate had that kind of, fate that she did. But it was the energy. The point is the energy was available. And then when we get into these spaces, we'll tap it. We will absolutely use that energy whenever we need to, by the way. We could be there you could be in your home 5 or 6 years. And then maybe you won't tap into that divorce energy that's potential there. But then when the time is right, you will. Or the affair energy, or the great prosperity, like you were talking about before, opportunities just fall in your lap. That's from the good energy, right? And the potential is there.
Incredible. It's just incredible. Layers and layers to this experience we call reality. I'm always so fascinated with it.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah, the more you discover that there's more to discover.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And, I have been, a metaphysician or seeker or whatever you want, for many, many years. And I always say the same thing. It just gets deeper and richer. And now everybody's talking about quantum physics. Well, I've studied Feng Shui for, 25 years plus. And now I see, it's not that I wasn't aware of that. I see it even from a deeper level of how we create and what we attract. And we are really brilliant creators of our reality. And here's how I look at Feng Shui. While we're in the physical, people say, okay, well, there's that higher understanding. This is true. There is that higher, and I'm sure you've had every kind of discussion there is on your program about those kinds of things. But while we're in the physical, Feng Shui is an excellent tool so that we don't have to think about that. In other words, if we understand these things about how shifting our energy, we can get, better health and better relationships and so forth, then why not use that tool and then free up our minds, for exploring those other things that are fascinating in the physical realm, right? But this is a great tool, an ancient great tool that we can use while we're existing in the physical realm and these physical bodies, right?
Absolutely. So let's see. We're going to take a break in a short while, in just a couple of minutes. But I would like to let's see. I have so many things I want to ask you. I'm trying to figure out which one to have you dive into first. But I'd like to get a little bit more detail. Begin to get a little bit more detail for the audience in the sense of locations and in the sense of their homes or rooms, the arrangement. Say, okay, let's say the bedroom, just let's start with that.
Okay. Well, this is how basically it works. There are a lot of, things, and they have, bedroom tips and things like that, and we can certainly do that. But really what you want to do is the overall energy of the home will give you the most specific. But just some general things in bedrooms that are going to not give you a good result are mirrors in the bedroom. And here's the rule for the mirrors. I know people have probably heard this before, but here's the rule. While laying in bed, if you can see yourself in a mirror, then it needs to be repositioned, because it will bring, it's incredibly discerning to our energy field, number one. Two, they say, the Chinese have, in the discovery of Feng Shui, discovered that it brings disharmony for a couple. So they'll fight, and then sometimes it'll bring in the third party. So it can be affairs, certainly bickering and fighting, and very disconcerting to our energy field, because we astral travel at night, and so we don't line up properly. Now, that makes a problem for these closeted mirrors, because they literally are ceiling to floor. Okay, so it's a simple solution. You just need to cover those up so that you don't disturb your sleep. This is really bad for children too, by the way, but we're talking about the master, homeowner's bedroom. And you just cover those up when you sleep. During the day, you can leave them open. You cover them with something, either, fabric or drapes, or paper them or remove them if you own the home. But I realize sometimes people can't do that. That's one thing. That's a big thing that I see a lot when I go into people's homes, is these floor-to-ceiling mirrored closeted doors.
Those are, yeah.
That's
a lot. It's a lot of mirror. I've seen them. Yeah,
it's a lot of mirror. So it doesn't mean you can't have them in there. You can, and they're wonderful, and they're beautiful, reflective objects and things. Another of the which will affect the body and the health, and it also can separate couples, is these overhead beams. Now, I happen to absolutely love the look of overhead beams. I love that whole Santa Fe look. I love that. I think it's warm, and they're fine if they're very high up. So if they're like 10, 12 feet or higher, which they do that to bring that warmth. The designers use them a lot to bring the warmth and bring the ceiling down a little bit. They're fine. They're not going to really affect your body. They're not going to affect your relationships in the bedroom or the living room, but especially the bedroom, because that's where we're checking out for several hours. We're out in a meditative state, a coma state, if you will, for several hours. But if they're 8 feet or lower, they're going to have an effect, and they're going to have an effect pretty quickly. Meaning that in a few months of living in that home with those beams right next to your body, literally there's less than 6 feet from your body, then it's going to have an effect. It will, if it's down running, splitting the bed in half, it'll eventually affect the couple. If it's running across the body and into those meridians, it's hitting those meridians, it's going to affect, like your digestion, it's going to hit across your heart meridian, maybe even your throat, depends on where they're located. So those can be serious. But if they're really high, they're no problem at all. They can't cause any harm to the body or anything. But that's like, up there, high soaring ceilings.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah, and then no water in the bedroom. So that means a fish tank, those kinds of things. Those are it's moving the chi too much and disturbing that deep REM sleep. So that shouldn't be in there. And then I would just say, in general, not too much red and stimulating colors. Keep the palette in the bedroom neutral and soft so you can get into that relaxing REM sleep. Now, the only exception to water is if you're very fortunate enough to be blessed to live next to the ocean. And the sound of the ocean is very primordial, and that is not the water we're talking about. We're talking about like a fountain in your bedroom that's moving the chi too much, or fish tanks when they're moving the chi too much. Those are all like taboo in the bedroom. This is our restive place. See, this is where we rejuvenate our body. So you shouldn't have an office or your computers or things like that. It should be for sleep and lovemaking. That is it. Don't use your bedroom for the office, the exercise equipment, and all those kinds of things. Those functions should be like in other rooms. There's too much magnetic energy coming off of your computers and things like that. And it'll affect the body, it'll affect the health, and then people start fighting because they're not feeling well and so forth like that.
Wow. This is really important because, I said the bedroom because, yeah, you're right. There's that resting place. There's that specific special place from which you emerge to start your day. You go in there, and then you leave out of there, and then you start your day, and you end the day going back in there.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the two purposes. It should be set up beautifully for couples. for lovemaking and beautifully set up for a deep, restive sleep. In other words, don't have it too yang. You know, like I lived in Scottsdale, Arizona for a while, and people love the sunshine, and the sunshine's beautiful. And they would forget, you know, to close off that at night to get into that deep yin, get the room really yin and leave those blinds and stuff open. You can't do that. You need to get it really yin so you can go into that deep sleep and you can astral travel and you can rejuvenate the body and all that kind of stuff. And you won't do that if it's too yang. You know, you've got the lights there and you got lights outside. You need to get, that's the room that should be made dark. Now, during the day, do what you want. Leave all the things open. I love that. Leave all the light open. But the bedroom is it's funny that you mentioned that because it's one of the most special rooms that you can see how much attention is paid to the bedroom, the master bedroom especially.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the family's luck trickles down from that.
Absolutely.
So whoever the parents are, the homeowner, everybody's luck, whether they're single parent or whatever, it's trickling, or they have several generations living in the same place, it's trickling down from that umbrella of that couple, you see, that's whatever's happening for them, good luck or bad luck.
Well, Denise, we're going to, I mean, we could do a whole show talking about the bedroom.
Yeah.
we're going to take a break, and then we're definitely going to come back and tackle this some more. Okay, I know you talked about the science, you're explaining the science of this, but, you know, we're going to talk about the rest of the house and business and office and so on. So stay tuned, audience, and we will be right back.
KPFK's 2019 Local Station Board election is underway. A donation of $25 by June 30th gives you the right to vote. Want to do more than donate? Consider running as a candidate to serve on your local station board. Visit elections.pacifica.org and cast your candidacy by completing the nomination package before June 30th. E-ballots will be issued to members with an email. Members in need of a paper ballot can email nes@pacifica.org or leave a voicemail at 510-854-9663 indicating their full name, address, and telephone number. Please help make this election green by filling out a ballot request form on elections.pacifica.org indicating the email you would like us to use to send you a ballot. Ballots go out August 15th, 2019.
And we are back, and you're listening to The Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett. I am Sonia, and we are coming to you from KPFK 90.7 FM in Southern California, 98.7 in Santa Barbara, 93.7 in San Diego, 99.5 in Ridgecrest and China Lake, and, of course, streaming on the web at kpfk.org. And, of course, we've been chatting with my guest, Denise Liotta Dennis. She is a master Feng Shui expert. She is definitely giving us some profound insights and information about our homes and our lives and how to make it even more fantastic and to maybe perk up a little bit, get some happiness going in the space. So now even the paint on the wall, I wanted to ask you that, but I wanted to make sure I did it after the break. But even the paint on the wall, I mean, that counts too in the whole Feng Shui process, or?
I know people are probably used to it, reading about it in the Western style. We call it the Western style Feng Shui. In classical, it factors in about 10%.
Okay.
So color, certainly color is important for humans' emotions. But it doesn't, it's not up there like the real elements. Like, for instance, people say, okay, paint the south wall. I'll just give an example for the Westerns. They paint the south wall red and, you know, you get fame. Well, first of all, we know that's a little bit too simplistic. It's not in everybody's, you know, whatever you want to call it, karma to be famous, and you don't paint a red wall and then you get famous, okay? First of all, they didn't have, you know, Home Depots back in the day. You know, they didn't use color. Like, yeah, you use color, but if you want fire, which is red as the fire, you use fire. In other words, you're going to examine where the stove is. That's the important fire that feeds the body. You're going to examine the fireplace. That's real fire. Or a fire pit outside, or torchères, or something like that. if you, in fact, need to do something either to enhance, and we use fire for both, enhancing or curing something in your, in and around your home, we use real fire. We don't use red. Now, if we can't do anything with real fire, let's say, we use it when people are in leasing spaces and they're not allowed to do certain things, they can use the color red or something as quote-unquote a fire cure. But the real element is what works best. In other words, you don't use a picture of water, you use real water. You don't use a picture of metal, you're using real metal, bronze, brass, something like that. Because that is the closest to, that has the most power to make a change.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask about feeling. And when I'm saying feeling, there are times when you set up a room a certain way, the couch is a certain place, or the bed is a certain place, and you feel like that's where your head needs to be, or the couch needs to be. Does that make sense? There's this feeling.
And I think people's instincts are, like I said, I think that even when they select the home, the best is to get it right from the beginning. Go out and get some, either have your book with you or hire somebody that's out there helping you select the home so that you don't have to go around curing everything. And people do base a lot on selecting where they live and the emotions, and even setting up a room and the emotions. But again, that would be what you're experiencing. Now, when you engage someone to assist you, or either a professional, or you get a book and you say, I really feel like I need to get a book to set up this room, even though it feels pretty good. Okay, maybe the way you're setting it up would give you a certain result that you would like to experience, but maybe it would not. Or you would like to experience, but it's not turning out the way you thought. Like you mentioned earlier, it's not quite what you envision it to be. You thought, okay, well, I'm going to set my desk up here, the room, and I'm going to get some clients. Well, then it's not working like that. Okay, so then you discover that there are other Feng Shui formulas that you can use, and maybe that direction for your home. Now, remember, it gets very specific in classical, as in an exact compass direction. So basically, this is how it works. And the feeling aside, because the room can feel pretty good the way that you have it done, but it won't give you. Maybe it's not, and you wouldn't know that in a month or so. Like you set it up, because I set my desk up for this new business or whatever, or I set my bed up because I want to attract a new partner, right? And those results aren't coming. And then you discover maybe there's something deeper, and then you go get a book or you hire somebody, and they're sharing with you something on that deeper level. So that would override the feeling, well, it looks pretty good, it feels pretty good, but there's more to that. Based on that compass direction, your home, if you will, and this is how it works in classical, once you take that compass direction of your studio, where you are, your home, wherever you're looking at, it will have a specific direction. And in classical, it can only face one of 24 facings. Once we have one of those 24 facings, it has an energy map. And the energy map tells you how to set up your space. So this is what I talk about in every single book, because this is in every single book I want people to feel successful. Even if I do a lecture, and I only have 20 minutes with them, I'll share some things with them so that they can go home and move their desk or move their bed and experiment with it and get a different result. So that it's showing you different ways to move the chi around. I even have one called, Feng Shui that rocks the house, shake up the energy and get the life you want, because you can do some simple things like that. So it may look good and feel good like you're talking about, but maybe you're not happy with it like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so it's sort of lack of movement. It's like it feels good initially having it that way, but there's really no movement.
Yeah, it's not happening the way you want it. And I'm all about the aesthetics, by the way. I do interior design, too. I love things to both look good and feel good. And I think everybody deserves a home like that. It needs to feel good to them, look good to them, and it needs to things need to be moving in their lives in the directions that they want them to. So if they got into a home, have you heard people talk about this? It's like ever since I've moved it, to XY Street, I've had nothing but bad luck.
Right.
Or they had pretty good luck in the house and were doing well, and they put a pool in. I hear the story all the time. Ever since we put that pool in, because now that is a huge body of water. And that's really important in classical feng shui, placing water well, or you'll get very bad results. And lots of things can happen, money loss, affairs, illness, or all of it, depending on where you plop that big, huge body of water. So sometimes they've had good luck, but they didn't know that the water is going to be activating in a huge way, because now that's hundreds of gallons of water activating the qi somewhere on your property, and they didn't get the result that they thought. And so something happens, and that's usually when they'll grab a book or call somebody, because they're sort of sensing that that's the only thing different that I've done, and I've been in this house for 5 years, or something like that. And that's a big, or they do construction.
Mm-hmm.
This is another big thing. People will blow out a wall or add a room or something like that, and very not knowing, that they have moved the qi in a way that has not been helpful. So that's why these deeper concepts are really important, and getting those specific 15-degree increments. That's why there's 24 of them, because there's 8 directions. Most people know those: north, south, east, west, and then those ones in the middle, southeast, southwest. We call them intercardinal. And then each of those main directions are divided up into 15-degree increments. That's how specific it is. So your home and your neighbor's home, even though they look like they might face the same direction, might be slightly different as it curves around the street or something like that. So that your energy map and how you should set up your home and where you place your water and your fire and your bed and so forth might be different than your very next door neighbor. First of all, your floor plan is going to be different, so the qi is going to flow differently. So that's how specific the classical gets. It's not a cookie cutter, which makes it so juicy. Because if it's a cookie cutter and you're not getting anything, well, that didn't work, and you just toss out the idea, right? Well, this is specific to you when you're born, when you moved into that house, how that house is, where your stuff is, where's your fire, where's your back door, where's your front door. You have attached garage or detached, or you go up into the 6th floor and you have one way to enter the building and one way to enter your suite. So it's very unique and individual to you, which makes it interesting and like I said, diverse, because it has to be diverse. We used to ask our teacher, why are there so many formulas? Oh my God, he's teaching us another formula, like we'll go blow our heads off, right? He said, because you're going to be like the doctor, you're going to have the kit, and you need all of these possibilities, because people live in all types of spaces, and they're born in all types of years, and so forth. So it gets specific.
Wow. Well, so you mentioned in your book as well, this, you said 2 extraordinary elements, which you're talking about: water and salt, the combination.
The health book,
Mm-hmm. Is that something that you can talk about? I mean, meaning it doesn't require a lot of time to explain?
Yeah, well, in the health book I mentioned, one of the most important things is getting in the direction of your what we call your 10 yi direction, which helps your health. The section you're referring to is Dr. His name is so long. He's an Iranian doctor who's passed away since then. But his nickname Dr. Batman, but it goes this long name which nobody can pronounce. That's why I sort of call him Dr. Batman. And he said that basic things in the body to ensure health were water and salt. And these are things that, Westerners, we didn't really know that much about, but he experimented. So I have a little section in the book, something very basic and very simple. But in that book, one of the best techniques to use to secure your health or to improve your health is getting your personal, because everybody has their own personal health direction, just like we have our own personal prosperous direction, once you get your life guan number, and I'll talk about that if we have time. And then you have your one for relationships. So those are the top 3 things that people are, concerned about. So that direction that you should enhance or activate or use, like for your bed and your desk and even doors, is based on your birthday. So based on in the 8 mansion system, and I'll talk about that system in every single book, based on the 8 mansion system, your gender and your birthday will determine what we call your life guan number. Now, that is exciting because it's almost like astrology. Once you have your life guan number, it gives you information about your personality. It's almost like a little bit like astrology, your propensities, your energy, how your energy drives you. But in Feng Shui, it gives you the secrets to like which directions to use to attract that partner, which direction to use to enhance the health. So once you have that number, then you know where to place your bed and where to place your desk and even which doors to activate and use. In other words, to come and go. In other words, what if you have a choice between the front door and the interior garage door, and one is a super fantastic luck for what it is you're wanting to create? Well, let's say it's prosperity or a partner. Then you would use that door more because you're flapping that chi, you're activating that chi, you're coming, you're going, you're coming and going, right? And the same thing with the bed. So I jokingly call this the nachos, and the nachos are the door, the stove, and the bed. And that sounds like really simple things to get right, but somehow or another that can be challenging. So those are the things, and there's a specific reason why, because this is where we're spending our time. This is how we come and go. This is how the house, the door is how the house takes in the energy. And think about how many times you come and go from your door. So it's always flapping that chi, that energy. So it must be good. It must be one of your great directions, and it is something you want to create, whatever that is. Better health, more money, the raise, the new position, the new partner, or even just enhancing things between your partner. Better, children better, behaving better, getting along with coworkers or family, whatever it is that you're thinking about that you want to create. Those are those areas that are addressed. In addition, it gives you that information about personality. So one of the books that Feng Shui Rocks the House, I get into very much details about your likwa. So let's say you're an 8, like I am, and then what your relationship would be with a 1, or with a 9, or with a 2 likwa. What would that be like? And so I have that as well. That's really helpful with working environments, but it's helpful in families as well, and partners.
Okay, well, I think what we should do before we continue on is probably, I think the book that you are going to gift our audience, is it the Feng Shui Health, Beauty, and Longevity?
Right. I think I sent you a couple of them, so it whatever your audience would want. But yeah, that's one of the books, and then Feng Shui Rocks the House, and then the Hollywood book.
Feng Shui Rocks the House. What do you think? Do you think? I don't know. It's hard to pick because they're all really great.
No, you can give them all away if you want. Because the Feng Shui Rocks the House will give people. It's the one that I always introduce when I'm doing a public lecture, because you can immediately, literally go home. Mm-hmm. So once you get your Likwa number, which I show them how to get the chart, and I do that, of course, step by step in the book, and you can immediately go home and change something. You can go move your bed, you can go move your desk, and you can see a result pretty quickly.
Okay.
And so that book is great for that. In addition, it has that whole element, like I talked about, like with the personalities and where your energy drives you. You see, so it's a little bit different in astrology. It's where your energy is going to take you, certain personality types, which is, to me, one of the most interesting aspects. Then the health book is going to go into all systems. The one that's really complex is the flying stars, the Shuang Kong phasing, and it means the mysterious void of time and space. It's just absolutely incredible. And that's a little bit headier subject. So when I write these books, I don't expect people to master that immediately, because it takes years to master some of these things. But I don't want to insult people's intelligence by saying, okay, that's just too heady for you, because I think that people can grasp the concept with a little bit of, effort there. So I always put it together. So once the person takes their compass direction of their home, all they need to do is go follow that section of the book, and I have all of these ideas of these things you can do. So,
and is this Feng Shui Rocks the House?
Well, and that one's just 8 mansions.
Okay.
The health book you talked about is 8 mansions and flying stars.
Okay.
In addition to other formulas as well. And it just takes you step by step and say, hey, if this is your facing of your house, if your house faces 169 degrees between 180 degrees, guess what? We call it South 1. It's just the first few degrees of south. And then here's the places you should place your bed. Here are the directions that's good for you. Here are the doors that are good. And it goes step by step. So you don't have to figure out, how do I use the 5 elements? How do I do this? How do I do that? It's there. But at the same time, all of the books go through those things because, to me, they're fascinating. The Chinese metaphysical arts, there's tons of them. Most people are aware of the acupuncture, martial arts, all those things. But Feng Shui is also part of Chinese metaphysics.
So can we, can we do, give away to maybe 3 people? If we do, can we do one of each? Well, the Feng Shui, health, beauty, and longevity, and
the longevity, the
and
Feng Shui rocks
the
in
house.
Hollywood. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you would do all 3 books?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So we can give away to what? 4 people or 3 people?
Let's do 3 people.
This is,
3 books,
okay.
3 people. Yeah.
All right. Well, 3 people, 3 lucky people. Dial 818-985-5735. 818-985-5735. All you got to say is Feng Shui, and we'll know, and they'll take your number, and we will get back to you to get all your information and get these out to you. This is like really fantastic, a wonderful opportunity. So what I'm going to do, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to take our very next break so that we can focus a little bit on the Hollywood fellow Feng Shui, because I'd really like to talk about that just for a moment.
Okay, great.
All right, so stay tuned, people. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm Nita Valens, host of Inner Vision on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. in the evening, bringing you cutting-edge information, interviews, and your calls. Be a part of our conversation every Wednesday at 7 p.m. right here on KPFK or streaming on the web at kpfk.org.
And we are back. Of course, you're listening to the Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett. You know that's me. You know my voice. And you are, of course, tuned into KPFK 90.7 FM right here in Southern California. And we've been speaking with my guest, Denise Liotta Dennis, and she is a master of the Feng Shui arts. And we've been covering quite a bit, and of course we could talk for a couple of hours. But let's talk a little bit about the Hollywood's fatal Feng Shui, 10 celebrity homes with a tragic history, just to give us some insight as to Feng Shui in the other direction.
Yeah. Where it's not so good.
Yeah. Well, who do you want to? Which ones do you want to tackle first? I'll let you lead in.
Yeah, a lot of these have. What's interesting, Sonia, is a lot of these have a common theme.
Okay.
So in the book, we addressed Jennifer is my Jennifer's brilliant. She's in California. She picked these homes. She's my protege, and she's been practicing Feng Shui for almost 12 years now. And she got interested in, when she was studying with me, I encouraged her to look at her environment, and I said, you were like in a, treasure trove of, like, famous things happening in your city. She was in L.A. at the time. She was dating an actor, so she was kind of immersed in that. And she picked these celebrity homes because of their tragic history and because we still love these stars. So we still are enamored with these people and their lives, and it's so unfortunate that they were tragic. So no one's done this before. No one said, hey, I wonder if they had a really bad house. It's like they had some really negative features. And a lot of them, lo and behold, did have a lot of negative energy, or the way that they were set in the environment. A lot of them, for instance, I think it was one of the worst ones was Brittany Murphy's house in the Hollywood Hills area, where it's literally just kind of surrounded by these mountains, and the house had a negative history before that too. Britney Spears owned this house, and so a lot of research was done on these homes. Like the shape of the homes were considered extremely taboo in Feng Shui, because basically what the Chinese discovered is that anything extreme, that means extreme design, or you're hanging off of a mountain, literally. I mean, even though you've secured it, you're still kind of hanging off of a mountain, right? These are extreme things, and they will bring negative results. So that's kind of a secret, and a lot of these homes were extreme in the shape of them, and we have floor plans in all of these books. So whoever the person gets the book, they'll see all these extreme-shaped floor plans, and they all brought very tragic, and, a lot of them are bloody.
Well, Brittany Murphy, as a matter of fact, her husband died shortly after. That was very bizarre.
That was really bad. That was really bad because two young people are in their 30s, no reason why that they should have, and not only did she die kind of mysteriously, He died, like 6 months later.
Yeah, mysteriously as
Right,
well.
Exactly. And then in the Phil Spector house, now this is the one that's in Alhambra. This was a fascinating house because that one, because he was in prison. He's in prison now for that murder of the beautiful actress that came to his house. That was a very odd house and has a very ghostly history to that house in Alhambra, built by a French businessman back in the 20s or something. And that one has a very long, tragic sort of history. Even the guy who built it, he didn't do well after he built that home. And then some of the other homes, of course, one of the most horrible one was Sharon Tate's house. Now, not everybody who was in that house had the bad luck. With her, it just became the perfect storm. And we talk about that. Remember, we talk about like in certain timing, things will release, like in certain years. And then that was the perfect storm in that house. It had what we called the classic 8 killings formation. I know these names sound terrible, these 8 killings, 8 roads of destruction. I mean, they're all terrible, 4 destructions and 6. I mean, these are real things that the Chinese discovered, that if they had these kinds of things, it would cause like crazy stuff, and these were crazy stuff. I mean, these are extreme. All of these examples are extreme. With Michael Jackson, his house in Netherlands had too much water. So it caused all kinds of lawsuits and too much sexual energy. So like too much water, you can have the opposite result, right? You can have water is good, but it must be well placed, and then too much sometimes will do the opposite result. So where it was placed in his property, which was almost every area, as I can remember, on that one, because it was huge acreage there, and it caused both of those things he experienced: too much sexual energy, too many lawsuits. I mean, we're talking about almost everybody he did business with. And Nicole Smith's house was kind of hanging off of a mountain, literally. And we've got a fantastic picture of that house in the back, and she almost immediately had bad luck in that house. It was, she never got her, she was a billionaire's wife. She never got her money from the Texas guy. And we in Texas, of course, that made the news all the time, that when she married Marshall, the billionaire. And when he died, and then she moved to California, it was like one bad thing after another.
Didn't her son die as well?
Her son died, yep, and he was like 19, drugs and so forth. And the little girl is being raised by her father. So it was like another one, lawsuit and lawsuit and lawsuit. So all of these had common things with a lot of lawsuits, some sexual things, like even O.J. Simpson, affairs. So it wasn't, with children or suspicious of children or whatever, because that was really never proven. But anyway, and then the Menendez brothers, that was also horrible, killing their parents, and they had a classic 8 roads of destruction formation, the way that the cheese came in the property. Now, what's interesting, Sonia, is that a lot of these homes, it took them forever to sell the home again.
That was my next question about abandoned property.
Mm-hmm. So, and we talk about this because we don't want to just be negative. We say, okay, well, what if we were hired to go look at that? How would we fix it? Well, we talk about that as well. Now, here's what's interesting. Some of these people very serendipitously fix this, like the Mendez home. They just automatically change the driveway, move the pool. Now, who does this, right? But these are the things that people actually did. So they have luck, and they have no need of these kinds of crazy energies, right? So they go in and move this. And the same thing with Nicole Brown Simpson's home. They went in. It took 2 years, I think, or 3 years, because everybody knew about that house. They finally sold it, and the people who bought it did some very good calls as far as Feng Shui is concerned to stabilize that property. And they changed the front. They did this. They put a wall up. They did all kinds of things that took it out of these really seriously negative formations. So that's what can happen. And then the Tate home was flattened to the ground. But the interesting thing about that one, because of the land, it's just like it just kind of soaked up the environment. The neighbors saw ghosts, and it wasn't Sharon; it was her hairdresser, Jay Sebring. And he talked to the neighbor and kept pointing to the property over there where Sharon Tate's house used to be, where all those murders took place. So these are really fascinating stories, and we did it because we want to show people that the Feng Shui does have something to do with the land, the environment, the formations, and like you said, the extreme. These are extreme examples. These are highly, famous people, and they did good things too. They made mega money, like even Marilyn Monroe. She did well. But, she died within 6 months of being in that house. Some
Right.
people died very quickly in the house. And then some people, a long time of history of things evolving.
It's almost like the houses, it's like they're, I don't know, it's not the word suspended, but it's like they're caught up in a realm.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can see them, they're there,
Yeah,
but they're
exactly.
in their own unique realm.
Right, exactly.
Energetically.
It's almost like an alternate reality almost.
Exactly. That's
really
precisely
is.
what I saw when you were saying that. I looked at that and I thought, that's really kind of basically what's going on.
Right. And all of them had extremes, everything. It was not just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Everything was just like really big, like their life. They had bigger than life lives, right? And everything was about their homes and stuff were real extreme. Even the Phil Hartman, the comedian, his wife shot him.
Yes.
And then she killed herself, and so that was a very tragic story. We couldn't get a floor plan on the house, but Jennifer visited the property, and she physically visited all of these properties as close as she could get to take accurate compass directions. She had researched like for a year. She went to all the public records, and then she had an architect recreate the records and so forth. So we tried to be as accurate as possible, and we really could tell the story and put the pieces together of the tragic feng shui that they had. And of course, the lesson in this is not to attract these kinds of properties, right? And some of it could have been fixed, and some of it can't. Like the castle can't be fixed; it just needs to be, used as a public building of some sort. That's where Phil Spector shot the beautiful actress. So some things just really can't be, if they're left the way they are. That would be a good public building. It's on a hill, literally on a hill. It should be like something like a public building, not a home. Some of these shouldn't be homes, and some of them were torn down. Brittany Murphy's house is a gorgeous, we couldn't get permission to have a picture of that. It's a beautiful masterpiece, literally to the ground, and which made it 1,000 times better, and I think it sold for like $16 million or something like that.
Well, guess what, Denise? We only have less than a minute left.
Oh, okay.
I know. I had tons of questions to ask you.
Okay.
But is there another website, or is this the website I mentioned, Dragon Gate Feng Shui?
Yeah, the Dragon Gate Feng Shui is my main website. And then I have an author page where all my books are displayed. And that is fengshuibookstore.com.
And people can contact you there if they want to do
more.
more.
And my books are on both websites. And then you can get them at Amazon, and Llewellyn's the publisher for 3 of the books. And then I self-publish some of the books. And they're at Amazon. You can get it on the author's webpage, the fengshui.com. They can find me all over the place.
Great. And any consultation, any if you want to talk to her,
Anything,
you can find her.
Yeah, anything, if people are interested in classes like I was like a fanatic. I was nuts. I was obsessed.
Thank you so much, Denise.
Thank you,
Good to have you
Sonia.
on. Thanks to our listening audience. Thanks to our engineer, D'Angelo Jones. Of course, visit theexpansionzone.com and also therealsoniabarrett.com to find out more about me, find out more about my work. And of course, as always, live life to its fullest and question everything. Until next time, see you then.
Talking about one love, one blood, one life in everyone, one life. Give each other. We are sisters and brothers. We sing.